have questions from parents always asking, so how do we prepare for paper one exam? I want to make paper one exam as predictable as maybe a math MCQ or a math problem sum. All right. So why is it that every time when we go into a composition exam, we feel like we are writing this for the first time, right? So if you've scored 35 marks before, you go in and then you're writing something completely new, you're not too sure whether it's going to be 35 again or is it going to be 32. So why don't you just take whatever worked for you and put them together into one 35-mark compo? It can be done, right? Look for your 3 to 5 highest scoring compositions that you like. And they are roughly quite different because you can then extract different parts of it out. So this is how it works, right? So dissect each composition and look for portions that can be used for other questions. For example, if you have 4 compositions and each of the compositions happen to have characters that you've developed very well in terms of appearance, in terms of personality, right? So maybe it's a friend, this friend that you describe very well. Or maybe there's this bully that you kind of describe, in a very vivid way, right? So you can put this bully into every story. So every one of a story will have Jake, right? That kind of thing. And then a teacher, right? Or maybe a good teacher, a good listener, somebody who is a good counselor, or a teacher who is harsh, who strikes fear into the students, right? Or a parent, right? Again, you can caricature the parent in a way. So have your characters develop in a way which you can use across different stories. And then you can have a different setting. So I used to have a student, he's very good at preparing for his compo. So he will always prepare his soccer match compo, his exam stress compo, right? But that's the actual answering of the question, the actual exam setting, right? Or being at home kind of compo, right? Or a stage performance kind of compo, or an injury, a fall, a crisis kind of compo. So he will practice all these. And each of these compositions has already developed into a 5-6 page mega compo, right? But he will just practice writing. So he started doing this at the end of P5. And then during every exam in P6, he'll just keep replicating this, right? And he's very successful, at least 35 marks, because all these were all marked by different teachers. And for PSLE, a very different teacher from a very different school will read your compo. You've written it 20 times, but they're reading it for the first time. And they will love it because you have already practiced it 20 times. Right? Why leave it to chance, right? When you know this works. Like I said, PSLE is not for learning. It is a summative snapshot of where you are now so that they can put you into the next stage of your academic journey. All right? So don't worry if you are not like going through any learning experience doing PSLE. You have already done enough of learning. Now it's time to demonstrate, not develop. Okay? Of course, it's still a learning experience because you go through it, right? Now for plot, are there certain plot twists that you always use, right? That kind of, is something which your teachers always tell you that it is very well done. Is there a certain climax development that you always use, right? An introduction, how do you open? Some people like to open with a quote, right? So memorize a few quotes if you want. I personally feel that memorizing quotes is quite challenging. Because if you memorize it or forget, if you forget one word or you memorize it inaccurately, then you might end up, kind of mangling the meaning of the quote, right? So not always the safest thing to do. So I always like to start with dialogue, right? Capture the reader's attention right away with a hook, right? Sometimes you have a one-word start, right? Maybe tragedy, full stop, next paragraph. Oh, then we're ready to dive into the story because you have already triggered the word tragedy in my mind. And if the picture is completely different from tragedy, it makes me curious. Of course, it makes me scared because are you going to write out of point, right? So there are so many different ways that you can start, right? One sentence, one word, dialogue, flashback, right? Onomatopoeia, a sound, boom, right? Now, for sounds, I forgot to say this just now. In fact, I didn't plan to say this, but it's important. For sounds, ring, the school bell rang. Do not need quotation marks. Your bell did not open its mouth and say ring. No, right? Ring. Just like crash, the car didn't say crash. So no need quotation marks for onomatopoeia, right? The school teacher that has been marking you wrong is wrong, right? Onomatopoeia does not need quotation marks because the bell is not talking, right? It is the sound of the bell, the sound of the crash, right? Conclusion, use a reflection, a lesson learned, right? As a conclusion, all right? So this is how you prepare from now until PSLE, right? Look for your high scoring composition. If you don't know, pass it to us, pass it to your teachers, right? I've helped my students identify different sections. I say, practice this, practice this, memorize this, memorize this. Memorizing your own writing is so much easier than memorizing somebody else's writing because it is your style and you know why you wrote that way. And you are just going to fine tune it, refine it further every time you do it. Okay. Hi, this is Dr. Daniel Chua. I hope the video that you have just watched will be helpful to your child in preparation for PSLE English. So if you are interested to sign up for any of our programs, please feel free to check out this QR code, and then you can then find out more about what we do to help our students at Cognitus Academy. All right, thank you.